Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to this week's installment of the weekly book steep where I wrap up the last week's worth of reading. We are going with peach iced tea today because it is very hot here. I've got the air conditioner on, so I apologise in advance if you can hear that. I'm not turning it off, it's hot. And this is what I needed. Fun fact, I am filming this as soon as I get home from basically a week away from my home, and I've literally just walked in the door and I need to get this filmed because I also need to get it edited and uploaded today so that it's ready for tomorrow. So fingers crossed we can get that done. Alrighty, so this is my reading week from the 10th of January until the 16th of January. I read a total of 13 things this week across different readership categories, some different genres this week. Mostly a lot of short things because I was away and I didn't get as much opportunity to just sit and read for a chunk of time because I was helping to look after toddlers. I read a total of 1,810 pages. I had 2 rereads this week, no DNFs, and I read 1 book for a project, and I did not get to one of my most anticipated books of the year because of said babysitting duties. All right, so I want to start off with a young adult title that I had for review. So one of the sections I will have in the weekly book steep are kids review titles, and that will be anything that fits into the kids, junior, middle and young adult fiction category that are review titles. I received a copy of If All the Stars Go Dark by S.G. Prince from NetGalley. This is a queer young adult space fantasy story and it is honestly a wonderful book. I really loved reading this, and it will hopefully, depending on how things pan out, probably end up in my top 5 books for the month. So this story is set in space. The basic premise for this is there's a number of different worlds and there is a space military or a space police force called the Legion, and our main character and point of view character for the whole book is Keller. Keller was abandoned by his parents when he was quite young. He was raised basically in a children's home that was raised by I'm trying to think of the right word. It feels like his character is kind of like a monk-like character, but it's not quite the same. They're characters who have a really deep, peaceful belief in the world and observing what's happening, and the guy that raised him runs this home. It's the first place where Keller really feels seen. However, he also has a very specific skill set. He's a very good marksman, and this kind of puts him at odds with sort of the belief system that he's raised in this children's home. At the start of the book, he has just been assigned to the 6th, which is a prestigious unit within the Legion. And the reason he is placed there is because one of the other pilots has lost their gunner in an accident or a battle, and Keller is there as a replacement. The pilot that is placed with is Lament, who is famous within the 6th, but not much is known about him. And their first meeting does not go well. So Keller is a gunner, and his job is to basically, partner with a pilot. But because of this rocky start that they get, basically Lament says, I don't need a gunner, no one's flying with me. No. Even though Keller has legitimately been placed in this unit. And what we find out is that Lament believes that his previous gunner partner, one of his best friends who was killed, was involved in an experiment that has gone wrong and has resulted in his death. And Lament wants to find out what it is. So there's this mist that seems to infect creatures and sends them into a violent rage. And Lament wants to get to the bottom of how this has happened, what's going on, etc. In the background, we also have another group within the galaxy who I've mentally blanked on the name for what the group is called, but they believe that they can predict the future because everything is fated. This group is causing a lot of havoc because they basically are saying, we know exactly what's going to happen, we know what people are going to do, etc. And they end up on the planet where Keller was raised, where there's this very active volcano that erupts every 9 years. It's a very routine thing. And they say, okay, it's the year that the volcano is going to erupt, and as it erupts, we've noticed that this mist is going to come and it's going to infect all of you, but we have a cure. And if you pledge your allegiance to our cause, we will distribute the cure for you. Is this sounding familiar with world events? Keller and Lament and the 6th, who is filled with the 6th is an amazing group of characters. I'd love to have more books about them because they were just really interesting to read about. You have non-verbal characters, you have characters who've great banter, you've got medical staff, etc. And they all work together to protect and help Lament find the answers that he's looking for. And also Keller. Keller's also looking for answers because he has always had this question around why his parents abandoned him. And that is part of this story. So this was fabulous. I really loved it. There is violence and space battles and things like that in it, but it was delightful. And the romance that develops between Keller and Lament is really lovely, particularly as they get to know one another and have to overcome their preconceived notions of each other. And I've talked about this book for a really long time, so we better get a move on. I had 2 rereads this week, so I reread White Hot and Clean Sweep by Ilona Andrews. I had the graphic audio for both of these. I'm waiting for the most recent Hidden Legacy graphic audio, which should be coming out in the next couple of days, so then I will be reading that as well. That'll be my audiobook. But those were rereads. My project book was The Maiden by E.B. Mitchell, which is going to be featured in a vlog, so stay tuned for that. And then all the other things that I read this week. I had an audiobook of The Village Beyond the Mist by Sachiko Kashiwaba, I believe, and it was translated by Avery Fisher Adagaway. This is the book that Spirited Away was based on, I believe. I won't talk too much about it. It is a sort of middle fiction title, but the audiobook was really great. It was a really just good book to have in the background. It's about a girl who is in the 6th grade who is sent away over the holidays, and she ends up in this village where everything's a little bit magic, and she ends up doing all these little jobs for people in the village. Like, it's just a very fun, interesting little book. Then we have Stuck With Me by Annabeth Albert, which is part of the Mount Hope series. This is a novella in that world, and we are following Marshall and Rory. It's a workplace relationship between a receptionist and one of the attorneys. The receptionist is only there while he is studying. He is, I think, studying to be a social worker from memory. It's very much a grumpy sunshine caretaking kind of book. They end up stuck in an elevator. One of our characters has diabetes, and that is a concern while they're stuck in the elevator because he was headed out to lunch and hadn't eaten anything during the day. Just a really fun little short set in the world of Mount Hope with side characters that appear, and I had a really good time with it. Then there was a short story, This Is Not a Romance, When We Were Friends by Jane Green. I believe this was an Amazon short. This is about Lucy, who has just gotten divorced. She has realized that her best friend lives in the UK. She doesn't have any other really close friends around her, but she ends up meeting Elle. And it's a really interesting look at friendship when you're older, but also it's quite interesting because what we see is a love bombing friendship relationship, which is not a great relationship, and how Lucy deals with that. So it's a really interesting look at, you know, friendship as you get older, because it's a hard world out there for friendship as an adult. Then I read The Conjurer's Wife. This one is by Sarah Penner. This is another Amazon short. Like I said, I was going through everything on my list that was short to read. This is set in, oh God, when was it? Maybe the 1890s. It says 1980s, but that's too late. I think it's the 1890s in Venice. We have Olivia, who is the wife of an illusionist and helps with his stage shows. And his stage shows are quite elaborate, and she's not quite sure how he does some of the things that he does. There is an age gap between them. They've been married for a year, and she doesn't remember very much. She has amnesia from something that happened on their wedding day. So straight away, red flags, right? Something's going on. I really enjoyed this short. I thought it was very atmospheric as Olivia figures out how Oscar's tricks work, who she is, how she came to be married to him, and what she does as a result with that knowledge. Like, it's short, it's fun. I love anything with illusionists. It's just a thing. Then I read Fake It Till You Make It by Louisa Masters. Again, this is a novella by her. This is a queer romance between a tech billionaire who is an enormous geek, like huge, ginormous, enormous geek. Love him. And the fact that he has a crush on his best friend's older brother, and it's their relationship. It is very sweet, very fun, very low angst. It's set in Melbourne, which I loved, and also the funniest thing in the story was the family betting pool on how long it would take for them to get together. And literally everyone in their families has money in this betting pool. And they find out about it, and they find a way to turn it back on their family members, which I loved. Then we have The Trade Up by Julia Connors. This is a hockey romance novella set in her hockey romance world. And it is the relationship between Zach, who is a NHL defenseman, and Ashley, she's a waitress. They meet because she's helping out at a restaurant where I think it's a family-owned business. She doesn't actually work there, but she was just helping out. And she is studying astrophysics or aeronautical engineering, one of the two. So she is incredibly intelligent, and they both bond over the fact that they love Star Trek. So we love a geeky bonding moment. It is a love at first sight kind of thing. It's very sweet, very cute. Really enjoyed it. Easy palate cleanser kind of thing. I also read Why Love Matters by Jay Northcote. This is a queer contemporary romance between Martin and Alistair. Both of them work together, and one of them is the son of the company's owner, and he has to give a big presentation overseas in Japan, and he's basically told, okay, you have to be prepared for the fact that the people that you're going to meet will want to hug you or touch your shoulder or things like that, and he has touch aversion. And so his co-worker says, hey, look, my mum runs a retreat to help people who need to be comfortable with physical contact. Let me see if I can book you in. And so they go along together. This was just very sweet and very enjoyable. It was interesting to hear about the workshop itself and how all of these different people who, for different reasons, don't like to be touched by other people, interact and connect with one another and relate to one another. And then, you know, the funny thing about the cuddle puddle at the end, which was adorable, but ultimately it is this kind of workplace romance, which was very sweet. I also read Nobody's Baby by Olivia Waite, which is the next book in her Dorothy Gentleman series, which is a cozy science fiction mystery series. Dorothy is an investigator aboard a generational ship, and the concept of this series is really cool because this generational ship is going to take centuries to reach its destination. And so people's memories have been downloaded into archives, which is basically they update it all the time with all their memories that they're making, because they live their lives, they die on the ship, and then a new body is created for them exactly the same as their previous one, and all of their memories are downloaded into them, and they reset in their 20s with all their prior life history. So it's a really cool concept. But one of the tenets of this ship is that during the journey, which they're not even, you know, close to finishing, is that nobody is procreating and creating new life because the ship has finite resources. Dorothy receives a message from her nephew saying, with all these questions about a baby, and it turns out a baby has been dropped on his doorstep. And he and his husband have been taking care of this baby for a couple of days. And then Dorothy has to go on the hunt to find out where the baby came from, who the baby's parents are, how the baby came to be, because genetically they shouldn't be able to procreate because their bodies are not built that way anymore. And it's really adorable. Like, it's just a cozy read. I love the characters. I love the concept. There's so many queer characters. It is just delightful. You know what? I think Nobody's Baby was supposed to be next week's wrap up. Oh well, that's fine. So we'll leave it there. Those are all the books that I have read in the past week. In the comments, I'd love to know, have you read any of them? Are you planning on picking any of them up? Feel free to let me know that down below. Otherwise, I'd love to hear about what you've been reading recently. As for what I'm planning on reading in the next week, I have to read Archangel's Blade. This is a reread for me. This is by Nalini Singh. We have a live show coming up next weekend, so that's all been scheduled. You can check my channel if you need to find out the date and time in your time zone. I need to get to Echoes of Insurrection by T.A. Waite, which is the next book in the Firebird Chronicles, but I've just got to find the right time to read it this week because this week is nuts. It's gonna be hectic because it's the last week before I go back to work, and there's so many things that I have not done that I need to do. Also, I have another vlog project that I'm going to be starting a little bit later today, which involves 12 novellas, which I'm not going to tell you all the names of the novellas. That'll be in a vlog, but that's a bit of a project that I'm also starting. So lots of things coming up. I'm excited about the reading. I'm loving this picking up whatever I feel like thing at the moment. It's working well for me. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave a spaceship emoji. So I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.